Welcome to Community Conversations with State Attorney Bain, your talk show for insights on the criminal justice system, community issues, and public safety in Orange and Osceola counties. Join State Attorney Andrew Bain as he dives into the issues that matter most to you, keeping it real every step of the way.
All right, welcome everybody to Community Conversations with State Attorney Bain. I'm so excited to be here with you this week. We have a great discussion ahead of us today. One of the topics that you kind of hear me talk about a lot, if you hear me talk about and talking in the community, we're going to talk about fatherless initiatives and the role of fathers in the family unit, and how important that is to our community and as well to our criminal justice system. So we are super excited to have everybody with us and for us to be rolling and talk about also what's going on with the office. So the office is doing amazing. I have to tell you, we're doing a really amazing job. I'm so excited for the promise that we have. We have a fully staffed office. That's 400 people that work here at the state attorney's office, both here in Orange and Osceola County, and they've been, just doing such great work for the people of our community, with the idea of also keeping that community safe, keeping us from harm, making sure that we're holding people accountable. So I want to give a big shout out this week to our sex crimes unit, which deals with both children that are victims of sex crimes and adults that are victims of sex crimes. And our sex crimes unit, they've been knocking out the park. I can't really talk more about them. We had a case last week where we had a violent gang member that was like literally pimping out his own children. They took that case to trial. Those two children testified. They did an amazing job. We had our therapy dog from the Orange County Sheriff's Office in the building to make sure that we were going to have good quality testimony from those juveniles. And we were able to secure life convictions against that person. And just as recently as yesterday, we had another one where we had a victim that had been living with her aunt and uncle. The uncle began abusing her. We were able to take that to trial and as well as secure 30 years to life when the case goes to sentencing later next month. And so that is like kind of the thing, man. That's what we do here at the office on the prosecution side. We've been really, knocking out the park when it comes to our violent criminals. We've been, when it comes to our shootings, we give a big shout out to Celia Ruiz. She's one of my violent crimes unit attorneys. She's been really crushing it. Like for about the last 3 or 4 months, she's just been rocking and rolling, making sure that we're going to be able to keep our community safe. And so I'm super excited about all the work that they've been doing and what we have been able to accomplish here in our community, as well as super pumped up about the opportunities that we're having at the end of the week. We're going to do another PACES workshop. We're going to invite a lot of the faith leaders. So we've been passing around that information to make sure that we're going to engage our faith leaders as well in a conversation about how we're going to be raising, how our children are being affected by the world around them, things that are affecting them in their lives, things that are positively affecting them, and things that are adversely affecting them, and what those things are going to lead to in the future if we don't do some type of prevention. So, which really brings us to the conversation that we're having today. And I have 2 sets of guests that I want to bring on. One of them is from the fathers. They have mentors for fatherless children. I want to bring on 2 really awesome guests when it comes to that. And I want to bring on my good friend, Mr. Rod Love, Mr. Let's Talk Nation, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Everything, Mr. Apaka. we're going to make sure that we're going to bring him on because he has a brand new initiative that we are partnering with in our office, as well as in the Seminole County, to bring talk about some of those same things. To talk about what's the importance of the role of the family, what's the really importance of doing. Having those parents in the household, having them to be able to be effective in what they're and effective in managing their children, shepherding them to a healthy, bright future. And if we can do that, then we then begin to build a resilient community, and that community is one that is going to thrive for us going forward. So super excited to have those guests that are coming on. And as well as kind of give you a little future announcement for October 5th. That's next month, October 5th. We're going to continue our Thriving Family Series workshop. We're going to be talking about the money. We're going to be talking about the business of the family and how important it is for to have financial freedom and financial literacy. But also, here's the pathway to doing it. And if you have an idea, you want to become an entrepreneur, we're going to help you start that process. So we're going to be doing that out of the National Entrepreneurship Center out on Colonial. It's right into the Planet Fitness in the mall. And so we're going to have an opportunity to make sure that we're going to get those people ready to rock and roll. But first, I want to bring on our good guests here, Mr. Leo and Ms. Samara. And so how's everybody doing?
Hello, Andrew. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Andrew. We appreciate you.
So this, I like to do a show. So talk to the people about what is the Mentors for Fatherless Children. Tell me about you all first, the tag team that you all guys are, and lead us start talking about what we're going to hear about from what we should expect from your program.
Wonderful. First, we'll tell you who we are as our mission statement. I'm sure my wife would love to do this with me. We're an outreach organization. We intervene. We uplift. Hold on, let's do it together. We're an outreach organization. We intervene. We uplift, educate, and motivate through peace, love, and unity. And that's our goal, is to educate, teach the next generation to love and respect using morals and discipline, something that is absent from family homes and youth these days. With discipline, we can have them learn moral support for their families, appreciation and gratitude, and give them an opportunity to have better careers, learn how to find employment that fits their character and not just do anything that they don't like to do. Family support with food delivery and services, and sports and music mentoring to allow them to help them see different careers that they're excited about. Go ahead, my love.
And we focus on building a family structure, kind of like a support system that those teen or at-risk youth will need, that support system to keep them on the right track. So we give them the skills needed, like communication, empathy, mental health, certification. So we educate the family on what is missing and what is needed in order for them to thrive in the community.
All right. So you guys do a lot. So we had an opportunity to visit with you all in the summertime. You guys had about 20 kids in there in the room. And you guys think at the time we were talking about low voltage. I think that's what you guys are doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they were doing some low voltage mentoring, like thinking about career paths, and people were we were talking about all types of different things from those group of kids. But tell the people about why this is important to you. And then why is it important to the community?
So some statistics that we have, back in 2022, there was a statistics done. There's 17.8 million children that's affected by fatherlessness. And how are they affected? That's 1 out of 4 children that are affected. They're affected by a home not having fathers. They are at greater risk at poverty. They're more likely to have behavioral problems. They are at greater risk at infant mortality, more likely to go to prison, more likely to commit a crime, more likely to have pregnancy teens on there, more likely to get to face abuse and neglect, more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, and also more likely to suffer from obesity and drop out of school. So when we saw those statistics, then we decided to do something about it. So I came from as far my background, I came from originally from Haiti, was born and raised, and I came to America at the age of 13. So when I came to America, I joined this nonprofit called Red Hook Initiative, and the founder, which is Jill Eisenhart, she was able to mentor me. I was one of her first mentees from 13 up until the adulthood. So I grew up in a nonprofit environment. Their goal is to bridge the gap between the impoverished community and the wealthy community by exposing them to different environment and settings, and that way they are being impacted to change that trajectory. So that's the same thing that we're doing now. So this is like kind of like a 360 of that nonprofit. What we're doing is exposing our children to different type of environment, giving them internships, giving them different mentors, exposing them to different type of businesses that they might not know that available out there, kind of like giving them an option, and from there build the family structure so that they have a stronger bond with their family, and they're able to grow and thrive and do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, my father was murdered when I was 13 years old, and I was a street type person growing up. Because of my father dying, I was an only child. I didn't have a lot of guidance. So a lot of my personality came from the hustlers and drug dealers in the streets. So it impacted me so much that when I got older, I missed the mark on a lot of education, a lot of guidance, and a lot of stability, and also morals. So as I gained stability and morals growing up, I learned that now that I have it, and these youth are missing the mark because their families are single parent homes, and not having the guidance, I decided to give back. And when I met my wife, we had made the decision to make this organization to make a difference out there. We opened our home to the community to allow the youth to have a place to come, to get resources. A lot of them love the music department because I was in the music business growing up. I do a lot of shows and things like that before the nonprofit, and they loved that about me. So youth would come, but then they start telling us about their home problems and their issues. And we ended up helping about 50 to 100 youth in 1 year that just wanted that guidance. So it became a big thing. So we ended up following through pursuit of this nonprofit and making it a duty to give resources to the community.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in, in that. And so what I got interested in as well is the mental health aspect of how you guys were approaching things. So can you talk to the people a little bit about, how because it's for the model that I like, it's a peer-to-peer model. So talk to me about how you guys went about, developing that, and, what's the impact of that for the kids that you go through your program?
Go ahead, Samara.
Oh, so the mental health aspect. So as we saw those families and as we saw those children, we saw that there was a mental health impact. And ever since COVID happened, a lot of people are experiencing mental health stability. So we created that stability for them. So through our partnership with RISE and partnership with Mental Health Association of Central Florida, we're able to give those family an evaluation, seeing where it's missing, and provide those counseling, group counseling, one-on-one mentorship. One of the things that we provide them, which is for free for the next 3 years, which is youth mental health first aid. It gives those families and those youth the tools for them to be aware of. So the more they're aware of what's needed or what's their problem, the more they're able to address it. So it goes from there. And then my husband does the peer-to-peer support, where he gives them a toolbox and show them how to utilize that toolbox to assist them along the way.
Yeah, my main focus is family stability, mental health awareness, and job training. But as far as mental health, we do a couple of different team studies with the youth. We give them like a wellness toolbox so they can find other options. If one of them have a weed smoking habit, we give them an option that they can use as instead of doing that, they can do this. If any one of those teens are having problems talking to their parents, we give them an option to do this instead of that. I can get more in depth, but I think this is an overall view of the basic initial assessment that we do before we start with any team.
Very good, very good. All right, I want you guys to hold on for just a little bit, and then I want to bring Mr. Love on for a second and have him talk about a little bit about what he has going on now as I will call him the Fatherless Initiative Czar, and and we're gonna get you guys back on here and just give me 1 second, okay?
Okay.
All right, Mr. Love.
State Attorney, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I am doing well, and thank you for the invitation to the show. As well as you see, Mr. Walter Smith, who's also, I would say, an expert in the area of when we talk about fatherhood and the Central Florida Fatherhood Initiative that extends from Orange County to Seminole County. And man, we're just delighted to be on your show.
Well, welcome. All right, so this is a brand new deal. You've been talking about it for the past year, but you got it over the finish line back in this summer. So tell me about tell the people exactly what it is that you want to accomplish with the Central Florida Fatherhood Initiative, and how are we building the building blocks to get to that reality.
Well, I'll say first and foremost, man, I was just listening to the interview that you were doing with the Robinsons. And I tell you, I'm excited about that because I see how the networking opportunity, building bridges. Mr. Robinson mentioned family stability. Well, the Fatherhood Initiative is about developing the stability in families, but it also looks at that father, whether he's in the home or whether he's a non-custodial father. And there's some real interesting things with some new laws changing in that extent. And that's why I wanted Walter Smith to be on here. Walter, can you, for the state attorney, talk about the direction we're going, but also specifically talk about the new law that went into place? I think it was 2023.
Yeah, 2023. Governor DeSantis signed a bill that pretty much changed the custody laws here in the state of Florida. Now, based on my understanding, is if there is a divorce or a paternity case, that the presumption of the state is that both parents not only get shared parental responsibility, but also get equal time sharing with the child. And I know just from my own personal experience and situations of other people's, one of the biggest dilemmas in our court system is fighting over the time sharing issue. So now, from what the Florida legislative has done and also Governor DeSantis signing off on this bill, now both parents, pretty much start at 15 days. Now, of course, every family situation is unique in itself, but it's supposed to kind of bridge that gap, build that family dynamic, and make sure that, fathers have a role to play in the family unit versus just being quote unquote a paycheck.
And Walter, let me jump in and state attorney, what we're trying to do with this, and Walter, thank you for that. We're trying to look at how do we continue to solidify that engagement with fathers and their children. I heard the Robinsons earlier talk about some of the services, but we're looking at how do we bridge the gap with mental health, which, I mean, you yourself has been a champion out there talking about the critical need, not just the need, but the critical need as it relates to mental health and individuals taking advantage of it. But what about fathers really not realizing that sometimes they're in an environment where they need the professional help with that engagement with their children? So this initiative is working with the fathers, working with the children. Some of the overlay is going to be access to health care, access to mental health care. We're also working with Career Source, looking at those that are unemployed and those that are underemployed. And so we're really coming right behind you and the things that you've been doing and championing to look at how do you pull the community together? Because if we're successful in this, it will impact your office positively.
Yeah. So, we talked about it. I'm a big proponent of exactly that. We have to look at the community as a collaborative issue that brings us to a point where we can actually make some changes. And so I want to talk about, I guess, maybe for Mr. Walter, how do you see let's say a step-by-step basis, like where, because it's a big problem. So where do you attack first? That's all I always tell my team, like, because everybody comes to me sometimes with these big problems, and I'm like, okay, where is going to be your point of entry and attack for dealing with this issue here in our community?
You want me to answer the question?
Yes, you're the expert. He said he dubbed you the expert, so he was doing it.
So I feel the point of attack is twofold. One is these type of engagements with people like yourself, the state attorney's office, judges, people who are involved in part of the decision making when it comes to the family unit. And then the second part of that is getting out there and engaging the community, engaging the fathers, and a lot of it is just information. And part of that information is letting the fathers know that there is hope. When you have a collaborative with individuals such as yourself, what Governor DeSantis has done with the signing of the new bill, with the court systems being involved, it gives fathers hopes, because there's a lot of misconceptions or perceptions in regard to the court system. And so when people have this knowledge and have hope that they can be a part of their family unit and have an impact, then I think that's part of the overall strategy, is just creating that awareness and also having these collaborative relationships with individuals such as yourself, the court system, the judges, and the other people who make decisions on behalf of families.
Yeah. Hey, Walter, if you could speak to just briefly, because State Attorney Walter is going to be facilitating the monthly online support services for fathers in Orange and Seminole County. And Walter, if you would, just talk a little bit about some of the discussions in the support services online piece.
Well, we have a number of different discussions that we're planning on having based on our contract with DCF. So we're going to talk about job training. We're going to talk about, parenting skills and co-parenting. We're going to talk about the health and the mental health issues. We're going to talk about some of basically how the court system works and some of the options that fathers have. And again, depending on their individual situations, because some people are just now starting off, and some people are already quote unquote in the system, or have, let's say, like a parenting plan in place. And so just creating that awareness, giving that information. We also have the leadership and other seminars that we're planning on having, just basically to take a holistic approach, because each individual is going to have an independent need. So part of our process is starting out with an assessment, so that way we can determine what that individual needs and how we can best benefit and help out that individual person.
So actually, I want to bring back on the Robinsons for this question, because this is the real deal question right here, because this comes right out of a situation I was helping a mother through that actually attended our one of our PACES workshop, because she has a young daughter. She's a single mom, and the daughter's she's at the age, the daughter started acting out. She's starting to act out now, and before the daughter, she was always with the daughter. It's her and the daughter. And then she started getting her career together. She was getting herself together, doing her thing, go back to school. She became, she became a nurse, I believe. And then the daughter started really, really acting out then, because, as I told her, because you broke up with her. you guys were in this relationship, then it was just you and her, and all of a sudden you brought this job in. And what you come to realize really what's going on was the father's problem. It was really a father issue, because the father, where basically his stance was like, well, if you're going to put me on child support, then I'm not going to engage.
Yes.
So, how are you guys planning to address that issue? I guess, Leo, how have you been addressing that issue? And because that's really a lot of those real things. I've heard that a lot from. I'm in the barbershops and I'm all over. Well, if I'm paying child support, then that's enough.
It's an amazing issue.
That's not enough.
To tell you, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Bain. One thing is that child support is issue that men need like Zoom call meetings with each other to discuss their terms and issues. What I do is a men's meeting every Tuesday night to let men speak on their issues because no one's listening to them. I just had a gentleman 2 days ago was thinking about committing suicide because he had gave his baby mama $2,600 and she turned around and cheated on him. And that just happened 2 days ago. And I gave him a wellness plan to help him with that. And I offered him to get on my men's meeting Zoom call, which have Christian brothers that are all a team of men that want to see a difference in these young men's life. Now, with the issue with child support and dealing with the child, they need men that have been through raising the child and men that understand childhood processes to give them stability to know that you are still enabled, you are obligated to be in that child's life, or they're going to turn out like that woman you're trying to date, or that young man is going to turn out like that drug dealer that you're avoiding him to be like. So my issue is that we need more Zoom calls to counsel these young men and men that are on child support, to give the real directors like Mr. Walter and Mr. Rod to speak to them and say, hey, this is your options to help you through your case of finding a job or finding a mental health associate that can give you, you maybe need therapy, and tell the courts that this is why I don't understand my situation. Because everyone knows that child support is somewhat illegal, but at the same time, it's needed.
Mm-hmm. Right. So
you're right on point.
Yeah. So my thing is like, so it's really, I mean, some guys get really upset about it. This is like a really emotional. This is like LeBron James, Michael Jordan conversations at the barber.
Oh yeah, I deal with it every day. I'm with you.
And so those are the type of things we're talking about, because a lot of men really believe not that the obligation, the financial obligation that's being imposed on them by a judge somehow is separate, is the same thing as, whether I should, be there to emotionally support my child, to rear them and to help with discipline and all those kind of things like that. So talk to the people about what are you going to do besides the Zoom calls, which is good, which I'm saying a lot of like with really good support systems. But are we looking for better advocacy
Yes.
at the child support hearings to better understand? Are we looking at bringing better, like the co-parenting you talked about a little bit, because that's a big thing, because the reality is that some women use that child as a tool versus looking out for the best interest of the child. So
Definitely.
how can we avoid those issues so then the child's not caught up in the middle of all this and looking so one parent, maybe we choose one parent over another kind of thing. All right, Mr. Smith, go. Walter got something.
No, what I was going to say to help address that part, in my opinion, part of that is knowledge. Because if you look at most situations, most men are put on child support because the mother goes to the states and petitions the court for child support. But unfortunately, here in the state of Florida, if a mother goes and petitions for child support, then child support is the only issue that's addressed, unless the father himself goes and files a petition for paternity to address the custody and the time sharing and the other issues. So a lot of times what I found is that a lot of men just don't have the knowledge of what their rights are and some of the things that they can do. And so now when it comes to parenting with the child, it's left to the discretion of the mother and whatever the mother decides is appropriate, and how much time that particular father may get with the child, if he even sees the child at all. And so once you're armed with knowledge and specifically what your rights are, now you can stand up and say, okay, if I want to be an integral part of my child's life, then here are the steps that I can take in order to do so. And like I said, with the new laws that came in place July of 2023, it kind of makes it an even playing field. So that's part of the solution. In addition to the counseling and the Zoom calls that Mr. Robinson had talked about, that I would advocate for, is making sure that these fathers are armed with the knowledge of what they can do to step up if they choose to.
And Mr. State Attorney, one of the things that you're very familiar with is, and this, a lot of this comes from Dr. Nelson, who's a national expert. And if I know I mentioned that Mr. Smith is an expert, but what I failed to mention is he's on the national level as an expert, and we're happy to have him. But the other piece is we look at the inputs, and I love what the Robinsons were talking about earlier. We have to look at all the inputs and outputs that we have going on with the population that we're serving, but the end goal should be the outcomes, and those outcomes should be our fathers further, our fathers better engage with their children, or fathers getting jobs so that they can support their kids if they're out of the home. We're looking at those outcomes, and are we achieving those outcomes? And one last note, I love the fact that, State Attorney, you're bringing people together, you're bringing organizations together. We have a youth violence prevention initiative that I'd love to see how we can tie in with the Robinsons and what they're doing. We have a tutoring program. I'm sure a lot of the young people that go to the Robinsons could benefit from the tutoring program. But again, remember, I talk about outcomes. Our tutoring program and the youth violence prevention program is predicated upon grades, behavior, and absences. If we can track that, we can look at those certain behaviors in schools that we can raise a red flag and work with those young people. What I'd like to offer up in my closing, and I know you still have plenty of time, is the technology that we use to not only track if we're making progress with these kids, but the technology that we use tells you every time you engage with that kid, it tells you a geographic location that you engage with that kid in, and then you could run reports to see if you need to increase your frequency, if what you're doing is working. Something tangible that you can actually put your hands on to go back to the powers to be if you need. Go back to the state attorney to say, this is working. Can we look at how do we introduce this in a community of zip codes that unfortunately you're getting more referrals for prosecution for juvenile delinquency?
Yeah.
I had one more. To add to that. That was a great input, Mr. Love. The other one I wanted to see is kind of like a prevention. So because women usually use child support as a weapon, in a way they use it as a weapon against the father, I was wondering if maybe we could implement something as an assessment. So once the mother goes in and say, hey, I would like to put this such and such on child support, well, the court will then initiate an assessment test to assess the family, see how many times does the father come and visit the kid? What's the issue? Why is she needing to put him on child support? So instead of just automatically going to the court system will then fall back on the family and the caseworker and be like, hey, let's get your family an assessment. Let's see what the family needs are. And based on those needs, provide the child support. That will be like the number one step. That will kind of like discourage mothers or fathers to use the child support as a weapon, more cater to the family needs or that child's needs, and then go ahead and provide those services to the family to have that stable
family. So what the idea is, what you really want is something that's beyond just the numbers. That's kind of the problem with child support. The problem with child support is a formula.
Right.
So they put all the information in the formula, and then it spits you out how much you're supposed to pay.
Yes.
And so there is no subjective look at the family and saying like, well, should you be paying more? Should you be paying less? And there's obviously there's some abuse that happens when it comes to doing that, especially when it comes to people like me that are lawyers. But one of the biggest problems that I ran into a lot was, especially in domestic violence cases, like here at the office, is that we have even defendants or fathers, they didn't go through the process of like becoming a legal father. I try to explain them the two different things, and these are two different things. They're like, you could be the father of this child, but you got to be the legal father of this child. So that means did you sign a birth certificate? Did a court adjudicate you to be the father? Like, did you do a paternity suit? All those kind of things like that. Because when that happens, when none of those things happen, you don't have any legal rights to the child, and so that becomes a real issue in a lot of cases. It becomes really contentious at that point, because I have fathers saying, well, I can't see my child. And I'm like, then I start, when I was a judge, I used to run through that list of questions. Like, so did you do this, and all the answers are no. And I'm like, well, unfortunately for you, you don't have any legal, like the court, the mother doesn't have any legal obligations to do anything at that point. So, kind of how do we how do we help these fathers use the court system to benefit them in making sure that they're going to be able to exercise those rights as a father with that child?
I presume, and then forgive me if I interrupted any one of you. One of the things is education. A lot of us are not educating our kids or our fathers. That's why it's important to have seminars. We need to have more seminars in the community. We need to have initiatives that say child support on the title, because they're afraid of that word. Child support should not be a scary word. It should be a word that we all want to embrace. And we need to have more motivational speakers and events to tell that fathers that don't understand the situations they're going through the process, because a lot of us didn't get the education to know how to utilize the court system. And that is where the initial problem is starting. Without the education to know that you have 10 days to handle this or 5 days to handle that, you're going to miss those days. And now you're left with the record that you didn't accomplish what you're supposed to accomplish to be able to be a great father. Now you got mental health. Now you got grief. Now you got causing crimes to try to survive. Now you got problems that police enforcement needs to be included into family disturbances because he wants his child. All this can be avoided with education.
Right. Mr. Walter, you go ahead, jump in. Walter, jump in, Walter.
Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to add in regard to the child support is, everyone knows, any reasonable person knows that, once you bring a child into this world, there's going to be a financial obligation. But one thing that I think that it's important for people to know is part of that child support formula is not only the income of the dad and the income of the mother, but the number of overnights that a particular father has with his child can potentially substantially reduce their child support obligation, because in theory, if the child is with that person a significant amount of time, then that person is supporting the child when that child is actually with them. And so, the more the fathers step up, it may not completely eliminate their child support obligation, but it could potentially reduce it because of the fact that they are stepping up and co-parenting with the other parent and taking responsibility and putting in the time with that actual child. So that does go into the formula of the final number that an individual father will end up paying for a child support obligation.
Yeah. So we want equitable distribution. You want equal. The more equal it is, the less money you pay. And just let people know. So the more equal time you have, the less money, and that's why it becomes a contentious issue, especially in divorces, in the paternity suits of sorts. Because if I can keep a child a couple of days more than a dad, then it increases my overall child support payments that I'm owed. But and that's usually with people that have like at least a decent amount of money. So we're talking, people with regular amount. But like some of these cases I've seen, we're talking about people that literally owe like $40 a month in child support and don't pay it, and some of those kind of things like that. So we're talking about some people that are very low poverty. They're not working, they're afraid to work because they're like, well, then all my check gonna go to my baby mama, and I have all these other things going on. And so I guess a big thing about dealing with men, well, it's because it's just talking about dealing with men, is that we have a lot of things about we don't want to be afraid. And so how do we address the fear? And I know education is important, but like we'll talk about the emotions as well, because people can know a bunch of things, but we still superstitious as a people. So so how do we address the emotions of the issues that of those type of issues? Like, so emotionally, how do we like say, look, man,
I'd like to answer this, but I know that my wife has the answer because we discussed this with a bunch of men on a regular basis, and including the women having the issue with stability in this time of trial of income. So it has a lot to do with income that pushes the child support situation too. But I'll let my wife handle this answer because I'm amazed to see what she has to say.
So one of the thing is the kind of like the assessment part. So a lot of those problems or issues or fear stem with mental stability. So first you have to get to know yourself as a father. So let's take, for example, a family that got a divorce. The father's is now scrambling to get his life together. The mother is scrambling to get their life together. Who's left in the middle? The child. All right. So let's say if we were to do an assessment and see where is everyone's mental health, mental awareness, mental health. So once the youth find out, you give them a mental awareness or get them the youth mental health first aid or certification. They're kind of like in an area where they know where they stand, what's needed. And then from that mental assessment, then they go from, okay, now how do I go about to meet those needs? Maybe one-on-one counseling, maybe mentorship, maybe you need like a peer system kind of thing. Well, this father went through this divorce as well, maybe a year or two ago. They can help you through navigating that. Or this family's been in a marriage for a long time. Maybe there's a couple of skills that you could gain from that you could recognize from your marriage to see why your marriage fell from that point on. But what can you do now to repair that relationship? How can you build a relationship with your child, even though you don't have access to that child 24/7 like you used to? Maybe having availability to the different, what do you like, what do you not like, what does your child like, what does your child not like, what would you like to leave as a legacy to your children? How would you like to build that relationship moving forward? If you have a business, would you like to pass on that business to that child? How can you spend more quality time that will be meaningful, not just for you, but for the child as well, overall, as the family is concerned? So those are different things that kind of like building that relationship and making that partnership with the parents and co-parenting stronger, and communication skills as well.
State Attorney Bain, one of the things that was asked was how. I mean, that's one of the questions or one of the words that's used more than anything else that we've heard as we've gone in communities, as we network. I'm listening to Mr. and Mrs. Robinson, and Mr. Robinson mentioned, one of the keys is the information, not having information, but the other piece is the lack of the networking among organizations. There's no organization that can do it all. And I'm listening to what the Robinsons are doing. When we talk about linking with one another, we're talking about assessments. We're talking about actual data. And one of the things I'd love to extend the invitation, and Walter, if you would, I'll get with the state attorney after this, but I'd love to see the Robinsons address the forum that of the Fatherhood Initiative. But even on top of that, think about, and I don't know, Miss Wynn is in her office, the over 200, almost 300 kids that we serve through 4 programs, and we'll have a 5th program starting back up September the 15th. The issues of State Attorney, you mentioned PACE. We're still using what it was originally called when you talk about ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, which we've digitized it, but we've also utilized the technology. Once you get that score, the next thing you need to know is, where do you get help? And help is also dependent upon proximity. Mm-hmm. If help for young people that live in Pine Hills, if help is out by SeaWorld, how useful do you think that's going to be?
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So I love what I'm hearing.
That's actually one of the initiatives. So that's why we came up with 2 different parts for our nonprofit. We have the intervention home and we have the intervention center. So the intervention home idea is to have a mentor or a mentor family trained in each neighborhood. That way when the kids come from school, instead of, if mommy and daddy's not home or no one is home and they have nowhere to go, instead of going in the street, committing crimes, smoking, or getting to a bad environment, having that home in the neighborhood that they know, okay, well, this is a mentor's father's children home. I could go in there. I know that there's a guaranteed mentor that's trained, and whatever issue that I have is going to be addressed. And if it's not being addressed at that home, guess what? We have the intervention center that we could refer them to the center to gain the skills or transportation there, back and forth there, to get the resources that they need. So
where has that been hiding? Where has that been? I mean, that is a jewel.
So we started that when
we started
not quite there yet.
We've been around
3 years ago. They're still building it. We're trying to get there.
So
one plug I have to say, if you type in your browser crcorange.org, Walter, when you get a chance, make sure that we get their information, because crc.org is community resource connector. We need to make sure all of these pieces of the pie are connected, and it's keyword driven, so that if you put mentor, if you put food, if you put shelter, it's going to pull up all of those resources. And again, it's based on proximity. You're going to get help based on what's closest to you.
Good.
Yeah,
So we've been around for the past 3 years, and then that's how we started the mentorship program, because Orange County have a big issue, which is transportation. So there's a lot of resources out there, but those parents are not able to get to those resources. So if you bring that resource to them, to their very neighborhood that they're experiencing that with, they could walk to the resource, and they could walk to a certain house, and the house doesn't have an environment of like kind of like an office, but more like a home. It creates that sense of, all right, I want that family. I want to have my own family, and this is how I want my family, by looking at another family thriving. So if people tend to have like a sheep mind mindset, so once they see something happening and they see it working, now they want to go home and do the same thing. So if you put that right in the neighborhood with them, they're more likely to follow that instead of going to a center and going that way.
Walter, you had something. I saw you.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to add to the discussion is that it's also important for, fathers to know that they have a support system. One of the advantages that women have is that when they go through these emotional issues, they can get together, cry on each other's shoulder, and everything is okay. Men, because we're built a little bit differently, we don't like to show our vulnerability. But if I can tell you, if there's one topic that can bring out emotion to men, is when it's dealing with their children. And so it's important that, to everyone that's listening, that there is a support system. Mr. Robinson had touched on it earlier, where you have a group of men who are similarly situated, who've been through a divorce, who've been through custody situations, who know the emotions that particular person is feeling. For me personally, I think that's one of the advantages that I have, that I bring to the program that I'm working with Mr. Love, is because I've been through this situation. So any individual that I talk to, if they're talking to me about the anger, the guilt, the remorse, whatever emotions that they're feeling, I've experienced those emotions themselves, and can be there to support them and help them how to ride through the storm, because the storm doesn't last forever. So I also think it's important that that we have a strong support system that these men can go to, because that will help with the emotional and mental aspect of the challenges when you're going through a situation like this.
Generation Z, X, Y, all of them need you on a commercial, brother. I need to put you on a commercial. If you want to reach somebody, I need to do this youth thing I got, because I talk to them constantly. I need to put you on a seminar and have you on stations to say what you just said. And then we'll round up everybody, put them on a Zoom call, and educate them.
Mm-hmm. Here. Amen.
No, we do it. So, I'm always I think one of the failures of, not failures, I guess we'll call it an opportunity of our community, is to go out and go into the communities and provide the resources that people need. And so, I spend a lot of time, directing people to resources. So the only advantage I have in all of these scenarios is I get to be part of the situation that orders people to go places. So that's kind of like a lot of what I get involved in. It's like, well, it's a part of your order. We're ordering you to go here, or if you want to be involved in one of our diversion programs, this is where you need to go and to accomplish the diversion program. But it's getting those resources in the hands of the people, not just talking about the things that we're doing, like things about the problems, just talking about them, just is a kind of a crazy thing. We need to be able to get those things in the hands of the people. And so, all right, last question before we gotta get out of here and jet off is, what do you see as the future for our communities, like when it comes to bringing, I almost want to call it bringing the family back. Everybody's on, we're gonna make the family again. That's something, I don't know if you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, but like bring the family back. Because what's being described, what Ms. Robinson was really describing, was just a grandma's house.
Yes.
That was a storehouse. It was a storehouse. It was either a storehouse in the hood, or it was like somebody's grandma's house. Basically, what you were describing. And but my grandma It wasn't like just sitting there watching stories all day. They're like, they was gonna talk to you. There's gonna like, get you a little snack or something. Always got a little snack for you. Always got a word of encouragement for you. All we're talking about those kind of grandmas. You're not just gonna sit there, come to the house, sit there watching stories. They're gonna greet you at the door. They're gonna look after you. And so, how do we, get that, become those centers? Because like my house was that center basically. Because I had a basketball court, and the house came with a pool. so everybody was always at my house when I was a kid. So my house became that place. So how do we, create those same kind of places everywhere else?
There are certain things that we have at our intervention centers. We have a garden in our backyard. We have a punching bag because they have stress that they want to get off. We have wood that is donated from Bithlow community and axes in the backyard. And I have a father and a son come out in the backyard and chop wood together. And they build their relationship by accomplishing goals. Also, we have a music studio in our garage that was built by the kids, for the kids. One of the slogans that I've come up with is that we're in the process of serving kids, but we're also serving the servers. And the Intervention Home Project is in every neighborhood. You can find one home that is in reach of every kid that's getting out of school that they can come to and speak to a mentor or a mentee. They see that logo on the side of the house. You can just stamp it on the side of any home and say they're certified in mental health. And they got a punching bag in the backyard and a basketball goal in the front and a mentor that'll go out there to play basketball with a bunch of youth, like in the old days. And in that fact, you build a trust.
Yeah.
So I like that. We got recruit.
And we'll serve in the community. And then you can say, hey.
Yeah, so you got to recruit those people to.
Yeah, we got to recruit the neighborhood homes and mentors.
Everything the Robinsons just said, I agree with. I'm gonna be real succinct and short, but I think one of the things that is critically important is that we find consistency. No matter what industry that you look at, law enforcement, public works, whatever sector, you see regular and ongoing communication and consistency that ultimately creates a level of expertise in whatever field it is. I think just from a community perspective, when we talk about fatherhood and fatherless kids, we got to find the level of consistency with doing what it is we're doing. But then the other side of that too, what we do is not easy. The other side of that is we also, and I'm going to use the example of the Miami Dolphin football player who just got pulled over and it was on all the networks. And the Dolphins issued a statement that we stand behind the player, and we're just glad it didn't go in a different direction. Hey, look, I looked at it, and this is my personal opinion. What we're doing, we also have to call balls and strikes. That football player, I understand he had a bad day. He had a bad day, but you know what? That set the tone for a lot of young people that were watching that. When he rolled up that window, we've seen officers' safety now where people are shooting at officers. When he rolled up the window, that officer, his day got bad because think about how dangerous it was. That could have went a completely different way. And I hope, because I believe that football player, he's a smart guy. He said his mama raised him right, and I believe him. I think what's needed is when people see men stand up and say, you know what? That was a bad day for me. I could have made that thing go much better. I don't want anybody to do what I did because it may not turn out the same way.
Yeah, I agree. You even do more de-escalation trainings with law enforcement. So that's what. So we also have those, ladies and gentlemen, that are listening. So we actually just did our last one in Osceola County High School football team. We came down there to big old de-escalation training with that whole team, and talked about, we did a whole simulated traffic stop and everything. And so, what's going to make your day worse? That's kind of the conversation like we had to have. So thank God that things did not go. They could have went much worse south than that. From breaking the window to really dragging him out the car, getting him being body slammed and all kind of stuff. So the whole time things we're trying to avoid when it comes to our kids. So that's just a promo for our de-escalation trainings that we do around town. So we have a youth group please reach out to our office, and we'll definitely come out and talk to them about making sure that we're having those safe interactions with law enforcement. And so we also for everybody on the listening, we do talk to law enforcement as well about de-escalating situations and making sure that we're handling things appropriately too. So, but we want to survive to stop. So that's the idea. All right. So, but I want to thank everybody for joining me on this good conversation that we have for our community, because it is something that is very important to me. I think it's very important to the people in our community. We are in a situation where fathers need to be uplifted. They need to be given the tools and opportunity to be great fathers. There's so many people that did not have a father, or had a father that was absent. So I'm privileged. My father did not, his father was in and out the home, and so they lived in the projects down there in Key West. We was home. They were drinking. It was domestic violence. It was all over the place. And then so that was back when welfare, where they would come to your house and count your shoes. So those type of things that were going on. But and then in turn, he was not. He's a great father, but he made a choice to become an amazing dad. He is my hero. I love him to death. And so there's opportunities for these men that want to make a change, to break a cycle, to become amazing fathers. So I want to thank everybody for joining me on the call. I appreciate you all.
I want to give a shout out to stepfathers.
Yeah, man, stepfathers, every father. If you are an uncle, whatever, like if you're providing that father, that father connection with a child, if that's your responsibility in the family, we want to uplift.
You're the leader.
Want to make sure that you got what you need.
Right. Hey, Mr. Leo, don't forget, and I was told this by a wise person, we talk about fathers, but we also got to pay tribute to those father figures out there too.
All right now, brother. I like that.
Right.
Watch out
Thank
now.
you, Andrew, for inviting us. Really appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you, attorney.
Thank you for the love.
This has been great. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Y'all have a
Keep
great
up the
one.
great work, state attorney. Keep up the great work.
Keep up the great work.
I appreciate you all.
Y'all take care.
You too.
All right, so I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment in this show to talk about today's date. So because it's significant, it's important. Today is September 11th, and 23 years ago, we suffered a terrible loss. And some people are still being affected today. There's some, like first responders, they're still dealing with medical issues, some still dying today, 23 years later from the incident that happened, the terrorist attack that happened on September 11, 2001. And so it is something that I've been thinking about all week, thinking about how we can unite as a people and as a country right now at a time where it feels like everything's being torn apart. And so it's one of the things why I'm at my my motivational minute for today is that we're going to talk about how teamwork is one of the most important things that we can have in our community. You can be successful by yourself, but with a team, anything's possible. And so that's what our community is. Our community is a team. Our community, for it to be the most resilient and flourishing and safe and prosperous community that we can have, we have to act like a team. And that means about treating people with respect, loving each other, making sure that we're looking after our children, we're looking after our fathers, our mothers, looking out for the most vulnerable people in our community. Those people are, the idea is something that can take us from being just a good community, just being like okay, to us being great. And I think that's really what we want for our community. We want to be a great community. We want to be a community that uplifts, that cherishes, that thinks about what we're going to do with intentionality. We want to be a community that's going to reach out and find the hand of the person that needs help. And so, we do great things at the office of helping and protect you from harm in this community. But our main goal is to uplift you. So I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you next Wednesday for another Community Conversations.
Looking for real talk on the criminal justice system and how we can work together to make our communities safer? Tune into Community Conversations with State Attorney Bain every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. Join State Attorney Andrew Bain as he interviews community leaders and activists, diving into the topics that matter most in Orange and Osceola counties. Get insights, stay informed, and be part of the conversation.